Okay, here we go. We're going to begin our review for the final exam. This is from Chapter 5. Let's get started right away. Let's take a look at this. It says determine the maximum or minimum value, then state the domain and range. Well, the way it's written right here is not quite so easy to see. If we were to graph it, it would really make it easy for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this and change it to that parabola form. And we do that by completing the square. So instead of writing f of x, if you don't mind, we'll just put y. Now let's do this. We're going to complete the square. So it's going to be x squared plus 4x plus, we're going to leave a blank right here, we're going to complete it, put that number right here, and then we've got a minus 7 over here like this. So now, in order to figure out what goes here, we take half of this middle term, which is 2, square it, which is 4, put it right here. Now you can't just add a 4 arbitrarily to this side. We're going to keep everything over here on the right side. I'm not changing this and putting it over to the left side. So I want to keep it on the same side, but how do I make it so I didn't really add a 4? Well, I subtract a 4. Alright, let's take a look at that. So now this is turned into a now right there, a perfect square. So watch what I get. Y equals, put that in parentheses, it's going to be x plus 2 squared minus 11. So now if you look at this, you can graph this. We're just going to do a very simple sketch of this thing. Here's a little x and y axis. If you look at this, what does it do? It makes that go to the left 2, and this makes it go down 11. So we're going to go to the left 2, negative 2, and all the way down here to negative 11. And we're going to put a point right there. Now what is this? This is a parabola. This is positive, so it opens up. So again, you don't have to be really detailed about this. You just have to realize that it's a parabola that opens up and is from negative, the vertex of that point, or that parabola, is negative 2, negative 11. Alright, so what does it say? Find the maximum or minimum. Well, let's do the minimum first. How low does this thing go? Well, it goes to negative 11. It doesn't go any lower than that. So the minimum, we'll just write it down like this. The minimum equals negative 11. What's the maximum? Well, the maximum, there really is no maximum. It just keeps on going up forever and ever. Where is forever and ever? It's at positive infinity. Let's do the domain and range. So the domain are all the x possibilities, okay, all the values for x from here to here. So I could go anywhere on this x-axis as far as I want to this direction. I could go anywhere in the right direction on the x value. I'm still going to get a corresponding y point. So that means there's all the real numbers. All the real numbers. Let's talk about the range. The range goes up and down. Remember, the domain goes along the x-axis, the range goes along the y-axis. So the range, what possible y values do I have for this? Well, we've kind of discussed it a little bit with the minimum and the maximum, but let's write it down as a range. The range starts at negative 11. That's as low as it gets, but it keeps on getting higher and higher as far as it wants. So what we say, let's not put equals, let's put a little colon there. The range are all the y values such that y is greater than or equal to negative 11. So we could have a y value of negative 11, but that's the lowest. All the other y values have to be everything above it, and that means greater than or equal to negative 11. Alright, let's go to the next one. Alright, let's look at number 2. It says write a quadratic equation in standard form with the given roots. Remember what standard form is. It's just ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So this is what we want to make this look like. Remember, this is kind of like, this would be standard form right here. We want to, it's kind of like this. Taking a problem like this, solving for x and y, and there's your answer. But we're given the answer, and we want to come up with a question, if you want to think of it that way. There's two different ways to do this. Let's do it the first way. I'll put a number 1 for the first possible solution. If you remember this, the sum of these two numbers is equal to negative b over a. And then, let's do it right here. The product of the numbers equals c over a. So let's do that. Let's take the sum of these two numbers. Just add them up. 3 plus negative 4. I'll just write it down. 3 plus negative 4 is negative 1, and that equals negative b over a. We'll do the next one. The product means you have to multiply them together. So 3 times negative 4 it's negative 12, and that equals c over a. Now if you take a look at this, let's put that over 1, let's put that over 1. The a has to be the same, and when we put it over 1, sure, the a is the denominator and it's just a 1, so we can say that a is equal to 1. So we're done with the a. Look at the b. Negative b equals negative 1, so b equals positive 1. So we've got a and we've got b. Look at c. C right here is equal to just negative 12, so I can just write that down. C is negative 12. Well, how does that help us? Well, that's what the a, b, and c are right in this equation. So let's put those numbers in. So it's 1x squared, which is just, let's do it right here, 1x squared, which is just x squared, you don't need the 1 in front of it, plus bx, again, it's a 1 in front of it, so that's an x, plus c, plus negative 12, or just minus 12, equals 0. And there it is. That's the quadratic equation in standard form. Let's do it another way. We'll call this number 2. This is a different way. And we could just set it up like this. We could set up two parentheses multiplied together. I put an x minus here and an x minus here. And then I just put the numbers inside of here. We've got a 3, we've got a negative 4. So let's see what we get. It's x minus 3 times, now it's minus negative 4, which is plus 4, equals 0. Multiply them together. Once you multiply them together, you should get something that looks like this. Let's do that. It's just FOIL method, so it's x squared plus 4x, we'll write every step here, minus 3x minus 12 equals 0. Now look what we get. We get x squared, 4x minus 3x is 1x, minus 12 equals 0. Now, does that look familiar? Well, it should. Looks just like what we did up here. Two different ways to get the equation in standard form given those two roots. Number 3. Now we're going to solve this. We're going to solve for x in this equation right here. We're going to do it by factoring. So hopefully this thing factors. Well, it should if they tell you to do it by factoring. So let's do this. It's two sets of parentheses. We know it's a quadratic, and so we just put the x right here, the x right here. Now we have to say what times what is going to give you 64, and those two numbers added together are going to give you negative 16. So you go through different scenarios of what times what. So let's see. I think 8 and 8 would work, wouldn't it? Negative 8 times negative 8 is positive 64, and negative 8 plus negative 8 is negative 16. So there you go. So now when you have these two things multiplied together and equal to 0, you just set them both equal to 0. Actually, let's do this. Set x minus 8 equals 0. Now the other one's exactly the same thing, x minus 8, so I don't have to do it twice. I can just do this. So x equals 8. That's all there is to that one. Alright, let's take a look at number 4. It's square roots now. So it's a square root of negative 49. So here's number 4. Oops, let me change something here. Alright, let's try this again. Number 4. Square root of negative 49. Now when you have a negative inside of a square root, that just makes it an I. It's a square root of negative 1, which is I. So just put an I out in front. Let's make this a square root of 49. And it's just an I out in front again. Square root of 49 is 7, or it's just written a lot better if it's 7i. That's all there is to that. Number 5 is going to incorporate what we just did right here. We're multiplying two things together with negatives inside the square root. So let's work on this. So this is going to be I because we took the negative outside of the square root and we made it into an I because the square root of negative 1 is I. So it's I times the square root of 23 times, same thing here, same reasoning, I times the square root of 46. Okay, now I squared. I times I is I squared. You remember that I squared equals negative 1. So it's just a negative out in front, and that's the square root of this right here. 23 times 46. Well, watch. I can simplify this a little bit easier. It's kind of rigged because 23 is in here as well because it's what? 23 times 2. 23 times 2 is 46. Since it's all being multiplied, I can put them under that one square root just like this. And now if you look at this, the square root of 23 times the square root of 23 is just 23. You still have this minus on the outside, so it's just a plain old 23, not the square root now, because 23 times 23 is 23 squared. When you take the square root of 23 squared, you just get 23. But you still have this left inside of there, and you can't do anything else with that, so you just leave it, the square root of 2.